Tottenham playing against a team that haven't won a game all season at 2 o'clock on a Sunday. I feel like I've got deja vu. I feel like I've been here before quite recently. Welcome back to the Ben Bowman YouTube channel. I hope you guys are doing well. In this video, we're going to preview the Ipswich game tomorrow. It's a very big game for Spurs. We do this before every single Premier League game, so make sure to subscribe for the next one, which will be Man City after the international break. And we're going to break it down on Monday. Hopefully, we're going to be talking about a Tottenham Hotspur win, because a Tottenham win, when you look at the fixtures this weekend, could potentially take Spurs into the top four and potentially even third. Brighton against Man City this weekend, Liverpool against Aston Villa, and then tomorrow you've got Chelsea against Arsenal, Forest taking on Newcastle as well. So there's a lot of teams round that top of the table kind of playing each other. In this video, we're going to talk about how Ipswich can hurt us, how they can be hurt, what we've learned from their Premier League season so far. They're first in about 20 years. They haven't won a game yet, and they're currently sat 18th in the table, 21 goals conceded. That's the second most amount of goals conceded in the Premier League. But they have scored more goals than Manchester United. Now, that might not be the biggest feat, certainly, in the Premier League, but they have been admirable. They've been brave, and they've been quite unlucky in a lot of games. A lot of last-minute winners conceded. That happened at Brentford last week. We're going to talk about that game in a little while. But I also want to talk about how I think Tottenham are going to set up, because I've identified 5 positions on the pitch here in which aren't certainties for Spurs tomorrow, in my opinion. Now, you might be thinking about that right-back slot and thinking about Pedro Porro, but I think that this is the perfect opportunity to bring Jed Spence in for this game. Pedro Porro's played a lot of football. Obviously, Jed Spence isn't registered in the Europa League. Pedro Porro played 90 minutes on Thursday at Galatasaray. Jed Spence is now back and available from injury. And I think going into the international break, I feel like this will be a good one to give Jed Spence a chance in. Look, I think it probably will be Pedro Porro. I do think that. But if we're talking about my lineup, I think I would quite like to see Jed Spence tomorrow at right back. I think that would be great. I think he deserves a chance. He's kind of been knocking on the door. Obviously, he's been a little bit up and down in terms of his fitness. But I think what better opportunity to give Jed Spence a game than against a team that's currently sat 18th in the table and struggling to win games. This is a good opportunity to show that he is able to do it at this level. He's been impressive in cameos for Spurs, and I think now he's back properly from injury. I think why not? Why not give him a game tomorrow? So I'm going to put Jed Spence in there at right back. We'll come back to these 3 positions a little bit later on. Centre back, centre midfield, and that other left-hand sided number 8. But let's talk about Ipswich then, because like I said, they currently sit 18th in the table, looking for that first win. Kieran McKenna played a very admirable, open style of football that got them from League One to the Championship to the Premier League. And it's not quite working so far, but you can see the principles that he has kind of, laid down in this team over the last few years exhibited in this side. I want to take you back to the first game of the season against Liverpool, where they ranked first for pressures in the final third, first for distance covered in terms of their pressing, first for sprinting pressures, and second for sprints. Now, if you go over the course of the season, that has tailed off a little bit. They are kind of right down the bottom in terms of low pressing intensity, in terms of seconds averaged, in terms of pressing, in terms of PPDA. And they're kind of bang in the middle in terms of ball disruptions, in terms of being able to affect the game and win the ball back in the opponent's final third, or opponent's defensive third, sorry. So their pressing kind of has tailed off, and obviously this kind of tells you the story of this is a team that was very eager to get back to the Premier League, really putting an impressive display on home turf against Liverpool on the opening day of the season. But they have got energy in this side, and they have got bravery, and they are willing to commit. They've had some good results against some top sides in this Premier League. If you go to their form, obviously they got a draw against Aston Villa a few weeks ago. They drew 4 games in a row against Fulham at home, Brighton away, which again, they were quite unlucky not to win that game. I remember they had a chance at the end, hitting the post. Southampton away, which in terms of the relegation battle was a good point for them. And then Villa at home. Since then, they have lost 3 against West Ham. They got battered away from home. They lost at home to Everton, and then they lost a very narrow 4-3 defeat away to Brentford a couple of weeks ago. And then they had a victory snatched from them right at the last minute against Leicester last week. You probably can't quite see that, but they drew 1-1 with Leicester last week. I think it was an RU 96th minute equaliser. So they have been unlucky. They lost away to Manchester City 4-1, and I want to talk about that game shortly, because I think it exhibited some of their bravery. But let's talk about how they could potentially hurt Tottenham. Again, with McKenna, they kind of played a possession, fast-paced, direct style. They were very attacking, very on the front foot, very exciting to watch in the Championship. But obviously, this is kind of a different team. This is probably how you'd expect them to set up tomorrow. If we look through some of the injuries that they've got. Axel Twanzebe, Ogbene, Jacob Greaves and Calvin Phillips are all out. Calvin Phillips suspended. Obviously, if you look at Tottenham's injury, Mikey Moore won't make it. We'll talk about Christian Romero shortly. Richarlison. Jed Spence is apparently back fit, although it's showing on here that he is injured. I'm sure I saw that Jed Spence was fit. Mickey van der Ven, Wilson Odebear and Timo Werner are all expected to miss out as well. So when you look at these players, that's quite an exciting attacking front three with Amari Hutchinson, Chaplin, Delap and Smodics. Now we'll talk about Sammy Smodics because I think he's played a key part in some of their success, or success in terms of being able to score goals away from home. Let's go through the Brentford game a couple of weeks ago then. So one thing they will do quite often, instead of building out from the back, they will transition from defence to attack quite quickly with these direct balls, almost with those strikers kind of playing as a front two. Delap didn't start this game, but I'd expect Delap to start tomorrow. And what you often see with Ipswich is Smodics coming in from this left-hand side on transition into more of a central area. And we've seen that twice so far this season. This was the first goal against Brentford. They went 2-0 up in this game and were pegged back quite quickly just before half-time. But ball into the forward there. He lays it off to Sammy Smodics, again coming in from that left-hand side, and he wraps the finish in the corner. Again, that direct ball from back to front, again into the forward, pops it off. Second ball won in midfield, and it's a lovely ball through to the striker, and he dinks it over the goalkeeper. That's obviously George Hurst starting for them up front against Brentford a few weeks ago. I'd expect Liam Delap to start tomorrow, but it could well be Hurst. And like I said, you quite often see Smodics moving from those left wing positions into that sort of second striker role to score these kind of goals. Again, one thing to watch out for tomorrow is that quality of crossing from the left-hand side. Leif Davis, we saw the goal that he scored against Leicester last weekend. If I just hide myself here, you can see the quality of delivery from Leif Davis into the box for Delap to get onto. Good instinctive finish. He's been very potent in front of goal for Ipswich Town so far this season, scoring 5 Premier League goals. And it was a lovely cross from Leif Davis. Again, you look at Manchester City, kind of hurting teams. Ipswich been able to hurt them kind of on transition. I spoke about Man City's weakness on transition. You look at the run of Sammy Smodics here. This time it is Liam Delap starting up front. Smodics kind of goes untracked, ball in behind, and he's able to finish. However, one way that they do kind of get themselves into problematic situations is, if I have myself here, they are brave playing out from the back. They are brave playing out from the back sometimes. Here it goes back to Muric, the goalkeeper, puts his foot on the ball, invites that press from Savinho, he nicks it back, and Kevin De Bruyne is there to score. So that is one way with Tottenham's pressing intensity that we are able to hurt them, because, like I said, they will be direct, they will go long into those strikers and play off of them, but they are brave as well. They will try and play out on occasion. I think it could come back to bite them. Again, this was early on in the season, but we saw it against Aston Villa as well. This one maybe been a little bit harsh in my analysis here, because this isn't exactly them trying to play out from the back. It's just a really botched clearance, I think, from Greaves into Rodgers, and they concede a goal from that, kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And again, one other way in which they kind of have been vulnerable this season is those kind of direct counter-attacks going the other way. The 2 goals that Brentford scored to get back into the game a couple of weeks ago, I think they went bang, bang just before half-time. And again, that's another kind of vulnerability of this Ipswich side, is that they have kind of conceded goals in clusters away at Man City. Again, any team can kind of get overwhelmed by City, of course, and against Brentford, where they were just able to go bang, bang and get back in the game just before half-time like this. So again, you're talking about those off-the-ball runs, which is something we'll come to with the second goal. Drive and run there from Keane Lewis Potter. I think that's Jan out that gets into that position, and he squares it for Visser. Ipswich quite open. They're 2-0 up at this point as well, so they've been brave, they've committed men, and they've kind of opened themselves up. This goal as well here, you look at Damsgaard, kind of similar off-the-ball movement to Kulusevski, just next to my head there. Ball down the line, and Bowman flicks it inside to Damsgaard, and they're open, and he plays it through to Visser, who goes through one-on-one to score the goal. So they are vulnerable in transition. They are vulnerable sometimes when playing out from the back, but they will be brave, and sometimes it does kind of suit them to go that little bit more direct and play that way. And again, Spurs, we've spoken about Spurs' issues kind of dealing with counter-attacks before, which I don't think is anywhere near as much of a problem this season, but it is obviously something we've got to be careful about with how many men will commit forward. But we know that we're not going to worry too much about that, and we're going to play our game. So when it comes to playing our game, who starts for Spurs tomorrow? Now, like I said, I've put Jed Spence in. I think, look, I'm pretty sure Jed Spence is back available, but I could also see it being Pedro Porro. And you guys let me know in the comments below, would you like to see Jed Spence start in this game? I think he definitely could, to get at Davis, to make those kind of runs, forward. And I think it'd be a good opportunity to give Pedro Porro a rest if Jed Spence is fit. So I'm going to leave him in there for now. Now, Christian Romero is one that Ange Postecoglou has kind of inferred that he might be okay for the weekend. which is a very positive sign. He's been picked for Argentina in the international break, so the injury can't be that serious, which is obviously a good thing. And I think with Radu Dragusin, you need to keep playing Radu Dragusin in the absence of Mickey van der Ven. He needs that game time to kind of get up to speed with things, and kind of play himself into a bit better form, and play himself into feeling kind of more comfortable in that role, right? And I think having Christian Romero in there alongside him brings the best out of Dragusin, because it kind of just allows him to do what he's good at and defend. You don't have to worry so much about Dragusin on the ball when Romero is in the team. So if Christian Romero is fit, obviously I would play him. I think there's an argument to maybe play Ben Davies alongside Romero as that kind of right foot, left foot balance. Ben Davies, I think, is more comfortable playing out from the back than Radu Dragusin. I think he's probably got a better range of passing, looks a little bit more comfortable on the ball. Obviously, he's played as a left centre-back in the 3 before he does that for Wales. So I think Ben Davies is more comfortable kind of with the ball at his feet when Ipswich maybe will press and we are able to play out and break through the lines. But I do think, despite the fact that I think it might work better for balance, I think you've got to give Dragusin a run while Van der Ven is injured. I think with Romero alongside him, I think that centre-back partnership kind of sits a bit more comfortably. I don't think you need to worry about Dragusin on the ball so much. So, as has been the case for Tottenham in the last month or so, the big conversation around team selection comes in midfield, really, doesn't it? That front 3 picks itself. Solanke came on, obviously looked very sharp. He'll be confident going into this game, obviously off the back of the goal that he scored on Thursday against Galatasaray. Ange Postecoglou said that everybody got through the game unscathed, which is really good. Son Heung-Min and Brennan Johnson came off at half-time, so they'll be fresh, well managed in terms of their minutes. I know we lost the game, but I think that was equally as important, to be honest, on Thursday night. So I think it kind of comes down to these 2 midfield positions, because Dejan Kulusevski is obviously a guaranteed starter. So at the moment, obviously James Maddison played. Let's put Maddison and Sarr both in here. Let's put Bissouma and Bentancur obviously in here, because these are the decisions that we need to make. Is there an argument, though, maybe to play Bissouma and Bentancur together? I think they played really well together the other night. That might be something that Spurs can look at for the future in terms of games where we maybe need to be a little more defensive. But I think it's obviously going to be one of these two. And again, one of these two in here. In the last game, let's take these question marks out. In the last game, Ange Postecoglou went like this against Aston Villa, with Bentancur and Sarr more as a double pivot, with Kulusevski kind of as that sole number 10 behind Dominic Solanke. Will he do that tomorrow? I'm not sure. Bentancur didn't start against Galatasaray in the week, so I'd imagine that he's probably going to go with Bentancur again tomorrow. But with the fact that Ipswich, look, they are desperate for points at the end of the day. Obviously, they have been brave so far this season, but I think they probably will sit in that little bit more maybe tomorrow, because they know the threat that we've got and try and hit us on the counter-attack and be direct like I've spoken about. Is it a game where you bring in James Maddison to kind of help unlock the door? Look, James Maddison did not play well on Thursday in Istanbul, but I think you've got to kind of give him a chance to respond in this game. Look, Pape Matar, again, it's a game where he can come and affect it off the bench. I don't necessarily think that we need him to start in this game. I think you definitely needed him kind of for the power and the physicality against Aston Villa, and he was absolutely excellent in that game. And he is becoming undroppable. But I do think you also have to manage the kind of the characters and the egos in this squad. Look, Pape Matar is one of our most important players, certainly right now. But James Maddison, I think, despite that poor performance in Istanbul, where I don't think he did Bissouma any favours, really. I don't think he showed for the ball enough. I don't think he created enough. I think he was too sloppy in possession. I think you also have to give him an opportunity to respond to that against a team where he should be able to be that main creative force. And like I said, you've always got Pape Matar to change it off the bench. So I would probably lean towards going with James Maddison tomorrow. And just because, like I said, I think you kind of just need to... He's a player that can be so useful for Spurs, and I think he's actually had a good season. I think that the problem is with Maddison is that, yes, there's always going to be ups and downs, and he is inconsistent, and we've kind of been warned about that by Leicester fans and such in the past. But I also think that you need to stroke that ego a little bit with someone like him, and I don't think, bearing in mind he's been, again, not picked for the England squad, I think you need to give Maddison an opportunity tomorrow to go out and show why he should be in there and why he should be starting for Spurs, because at the moment, if you are going to play with one number 10, he's competing with one of the most informed players in the league in Dejan Kulusevski. So if Spurs are going to play with one number 10, he really needs to show why he can play in there. And I think this is a good opportunity for him to go and grab this game tomorrow. He was excellent against Brentford about a month or so ago and like I said, he has been good for Spurs this season. He has. I think the problem is that where Maddison's a fiery character and there's always a story if he's left out, I think then it becomes even more exaggerated and it's all of a sudden like he's having a bad season. He's not performing at the level for Spurs, which I don't think is true. I think that narrative has kind of only really come about because of a couple of performances, and one of them was certainly Galatasaray on Thursday. But I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to go and prove why he should be in this team. And like I said, you've got the options to change it off the bench. So that is probably the starting 11 that I would go with tomorrow. We've got the international break after that, and then we've got Man City, and we'll be back on the channel on Monday to break down this game. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully we are talking about Tottenham Hotspur getting in to that top four. Getting into the top four before the end of the international break. Because if Arsenal draw at Chelsea, say if that's a draw, Spurs would go above both of them on goal difference. So we'd leapfrog Chelsea and Arsenal if we win. Aston Villa playing Liverpool tonight. You'd imagine Liverpool will win that game at Anfield. Will leapfrog them. Again, we could be fourth. We could even overtake Forest if they lose to Newcastle because of our goal difference. And we could end the weekend in third. So let's see what happens. Let's hope for a victory. Hopefully we're talking about a victory on Monday. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of other videos in the international break as well. I think it's a good chance to sort of sit back and digest the season so far and talk about it from more of a holistic perspective, kind of assess where we are. I think I'm going to do a video on what Spurs maybe need in January. I think we're kind of approaching that sort of conversation now. I'm also planning to do a video on Dominic Solanke, and I'm also planning to do a video on Johnny Cardozo. So international break, lots of content coming. And then after all of those videos, we'll be back talking about the Man City game at the Etihad in 2 weeks' time. But Ipswich is the next up, and that's the next focus. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoyed it, and up the Spurs. Have a great weekend, everyone. Nice one.